Hello, everyone. What is going on? My name is Timpedia, and welcome back to I almost said Let's Play. Command Me, the show where I talk about Commander for Magic the Gathering, the format. I'm going to keep rambling on with that. Anyway, so let's do our last episode before the show goes on hiatus for a while, and that is not due to lack of interest. I obviously still love Commander very much, but after the release of Dominaria, which is currently a week from today, pre-release is tonight, which I am not going to because I like sleeping and not drawing cards I don't really care about anyway and paying a bunch of money to do it. Yeah, I know, I sound like a terrible person. This is being recorded on the 1st, with pre-release coming up in approximately... People will probably start playing in about 8 hours. But Dominaria spoilers are done, and I am currently holding over half of the Janara deck in my hands right now. So until spoilers for Core Set 2019 are out, there's not much for me to do with this show. This show is definitely not gone, like I said. It's just going to be hiatus while I don't have anything to really talk about. But today we are doing our Dominaria update episode where I'm going to walk you through what cards I think I'm going to be changing, what cards I plan on cutting, adding, things like that, along with Dominaria. There are not all Dominaria cards in here. I'm also going to use this chance to potentially start... What's the way to put it? I'm going to use this to start... making some other updates. I'm rambling, I'm sorry. When a new set comes out, I like to take that as the chance to look at the entire deck and also go through EDH Rec and see if there's any cards that I've been missing that I just maybe didn't cut for budget, or that's just an older deck that I didn't include this card for, various things. I like to think I get better as a deck builder, and there's also something to be said for sure. Playing the deck for a while, you definitely change what you're doing. You realize holes, things that you should include, things that you don't really need, things like that. So we are going to go through this and go through 6 decks. I am not going to include Depala because unfortunately I am sunsetting her. And you can see I was going to buy Weatherlight and board the Weatherlight, the only 2 cards from Dominaria that are for her. One of them's a vehicle, one of them gets potentially vehicle cards. It's funny, I actually played the deck in a one-on-one the other day because I mentioned to someone that I was sunsetting it for Janara, and they were like, oh, play it against me, and I actually won. But a one-on-one doesn't mean much for Boros. And Arjun, I realized that while I like some of the Arjun stuff that I have going on, and it definitely has plenty of fun cards, honestly, the deck doesn't really do it for me anymore at all. There's some amazing cards in here, but I realized that the way the deck wins is pretty unfun. It's kind of a less enjoyable combo that's more likely to fizzle than Selvala. Selvala is very consistent if I get the combo pieces, or it's just value. This really struggles to protect itself and kind of get its thing going. And it doesn't help that the commander costs so much mana without necessarily doing a lot. If we look at the rest of my decks, Lycia is the only commander that costs more, and that's because she has a cost reduction mechanic. So I think I'm losing... I think whenever I do design a new deck, I promised my girlfriend I wouldn't design a new deck due to money mostly until the second half of this year, and this is being recorded at the end of April, so at least 2 months before I start writing down a single thing designing a new deck. But I think Arjun will be off the table at that point. He'll be the one who gets cut, and I'm hoping at that point I'll be set, but I've said that about 10 times in regards to playing Magic. So anyway, let's get started. Had to have water because last time I talked myself into a stupor. Okay, so looking at our Brea deck, my Brea Artifacts deck. So I have approximately 7 cards. This is the most I'm willing to cut that are cards that I'm probably getting rid of, including one and an 8th that I'm guaranteed getting rid of. No. So why don't we take a look at it? So the first thing I wanted to do was Joyra's Familiar, which I have to scroll through Mythic Spoiler, but I figured you guys getting some kind of visual is a good idea. Joyra's Familiar is this guy. Hopefully in HD you can read this. Historic spells cost 1 less to cast. It's a 2/2 flying for 4. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So currently I have Foundry Inspector, which is a 3 mana 3/2 without flying that just says my artifacts cost 1 less. Most of that deck is artifacts, but there are definitely some cards, including the 4 planeswalkers I currently run, which are the 2, where are they? The 2 Tezzerets and 2 Dorettis that I run, which are all 4 of them count as historic cards because they're legendary. In addition, we have things like... Are there anything... Actually, honestly, I don't remember if there's anything else that counts. I actually don't think so in the deck. There's not a lot of legendaries in my Brea deck. Padim, also. That's a 5th card. Sharoom, no, she's an artifact. Alright, so about 5 cards. Yeah, it looks like 5 cards but that matters, that will cost less. In addition, I know at least 1 card that's going to get a legendary creature from Dominaria that is also going to come into the deck for an undetermined card. So Joyra's Familiar is definitely going to replace Foundry Inspector. Because Foundry Inspector, while it's less mana in the deck, this deck already tends to run pretty slow and grindy, so I don't mind sacrificing the mana for a better creature and better abilities on it. Oh, this is one that's very important. Mox Opal. This card is one of the inventions I had been planning on getting. Mox Opal. It's a 0 mana artifact, which is all the Mox are. It's tapped to add 1 mana of any color, but you can only do it if you have 3 or more artifacts, which includes itself. This deck always has that. Unless I'm dead on board, which this won't help anyway, I have this. So I think what I'm going to do is Mox Opal is one of the non-Dominaria cards that I have wanted to run ever since I saw the invention. In addition, it's part of my efforts to get all the inventions, as many inventions as I can, I should say, into decks, because I love the inventions. They're the one thing I want to collect all of in Magic someday. But Mox Opal is definitely going into the deck, and here's the cards I was planning on cutting. Let's just reorder things a little bit. Temple of the False God is a land that taps for 2 colorless, but only if you control 5 or more lands. In most decks, that's okay, but at the same time, I've learned over time that card is really inconsistent, and I realized that 2 mana isn't really worth it if I'm low on lands, so I'm going to cut that in exchange for a Mox Opal. So it's 1 less land, which is scary. How many am I currently running in the deck? I'm currently running 37, which is already kind of danger zone for a 4-color deck. I'm going down to 36, but I have so many ramp artifacts, I think I'm okay. So that's my thought there. All right, so we have, how many? 6 cards left, and we have 13 that I was considering adding. Okay. Well, Joyra Weatherlight Captain. That's one of the ones I was definitely going to add. And it's Joyra, to go with her familiar. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. It's Sram, my mono white commander, who I love. Except it applies to not only all my artifacts, but also all of my planeswalkers and any sagas that I might add. So Joyra is a no-brainer because the deck really wants gas. And she also plays with her own familiar, which is nice too. Now the question is, what would I cut for her? So we have the cards that I'm willing to cut. Let me go over them real quick. I went through and did all these one day when I was at D&D. Open the vaults, return all artifacts and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. This card is really strong in the right circumstance, but I realized that as a player, I'm very gun-shy about helping other players. It's part of why I scrapped my group hug deck that I had for a while. If I'm going to help another player, it's going to be I'm going to have to get more benefit. And while I usually would in this case, the fact that it also gets enchantments, which I don't really need, it eats into my value love of a card. There's also Scrap Mastery, which does the same thing. It basically wipes the board of all artifacts, then puts all artifacts and graveyards onto the battlefield. The reason I'm willing to run this is because not only does it get my stuff out of my yard, but it also, if I have something like Breya, to sacrifice I've done this before, you sacrifice your whole board to a Breya effect or something like that. At least all the real artifacts, not tokens, if you don't have the mana or something. Then you cast this, and you wipe away all your opponent's artifacts, and then you get all yours back. So that's a value play, but I'm willing to cut open the vaults. Whirler Rogue is really, really cool. I might not cut all these, by the way. These are all options for cutting. 2 blue, 2/2 Human Rogue Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 Thopter tokens, and I can tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. This card's amazing because it makes Thopters, which is the whole theme of the deck, but I find that I almost never use the bottom part of the card, so at that point, it's a 4 mana 2/2 with 2 Thopters, which is still a good rate, but it's a maybe cut. Herald of Anguish, this is probably a cut. 5 black, 5/5 demon with flying. Improvise, my artifacts can help cast the spell. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card, and I can sack an artifact. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. This is actually really good. The only problem is it is Improvise. I realized on something like this is kind of a win more, where if I'm already flooding the board with Thopters, I can then also play this 5/5 who just makes my opponents discard cards. Usually by the time I have enough stuff set up to get him out, my opponents don't have many cards left, which is okay, but not amazing. He's just a 5/5 flying at that point, which is, again, I'm trying to go wide with Thopters. Sacking an artifact for 2 mana for such a weak ability when I usually want to do it with Breya. He's a great redundancy, but he's not enough. I'm willing to cut him. He's really cool, but I think I'm willing to cut him. Sharding Sphinx is a maybe cut, but whenever an artifact... It's a 4/4 Sphinx for 6 flying. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get a Thopter token. That's amazing, but I don't actually end up attacking with Thopters all that much. And part of the goal of this is to lower the mana curve of this deck, which I find to be really high. It's also one of those cards that I almost never need it. It's just, again, kind of win-more-y. Reverse Engineer. This is a maybe cut. Again, some of these are stretches. This is also Improvise 3 blue, draw 3 cards. If I have 3 Thopters on the field, this is usually pay 2 blue, draw 3 cards, which is pretty good. Which is why it's a maybe cut. But at the same time, if you're low on cards, then it's just a really... Like, the problem with Improvise is things are usually overcosted for what they are, or at least okay costed for what they are. And if you don't have many artifacts, they can feel very heavy in your hand. So I usually have lots of artifacts, but I don't like to trust that I have lots of artifacts. And Maverick Thopterist, which, like Whirler Rogue, is... Oh, I was looking at the wrong letter. It's Improvise, make 2 Thopters, 2/2. So it's more mana, but you can cost reduce it, but it brings along Thopters. So it's kind of also, I realized, pulling me away from the Thopter theme of the deck. But at the same time, maybe that's okay. It depends on how much I want to lean into not necessarily being just Thopters. So that's what we're cutting, or open for cutting. Let's try to move... Wow, I'm going to need to do 2 Dominaria updates, probably. Jeez. Okay, that's fair. Maybe I'll do like 3 decks this time and 3 decks next week. That seems more reasonable, and I can take it slow, because I'm pretty sure I rushed when I did my intro part, too, because I ran out of breath and needed water. So maybe we'll take it easy this time. All right. Phyrexian Scripture is our first Saga card. Is our first maybe ad that's from Dominaria, except for, well, Joyra, but... Phyrexian Scriptures. It's hard to read, I apologize. Let's see if we can open it. Yeah. So, Sagas, the way they work, you play them, and they instantly activate their number 1 ability. Then, during your next turn, after your draw step, beginning your main phase, it's weird wording, you activate the second one, and then when you go to your third turn, you do the third one. You add these counters, these lore counters, and you can remove them with stuff. I don't have any decks that take advantage of that. This is, so you play it, you put a 1/1 counter on one creature, up to one. That creature is also an artifact, which most of my creatures are artifacts, but it's mostly for the second and third ability. Second ability, destroy all non-artifact creatures, which most of my creatures, again, are artifacts. Or if I play something like Padim or Joyra, I can make them an artifact and they'll be fine. And then third, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. This is really good because this deck doesn't really have graveyard hate in it, which I more and more am realizing is very important. So this seems extremely likely, and it's also very flavorful and fun. So it seems very likely for something I would add. War is more. The Antiquities War. This is another saga. For your first and second ability, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact and put them into your hand and put the rest on the bottom. And then third, artifacts you control become artifact creatures with power 5, with base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn. This is really cool, and it's also a lot like the Tezzerets, which are both great cards that are almost win conditions on their own. The only problem with it is I don't... Like, 4 mana for those first 2 isn't amazing. I don't know. I worry about it. I don't know. Let's keep going. Teshar, Ancestors Apostle is a white card. Where are you, Teshar? Whenever you cast a historic spell, which again is sagas, artifacts, or legendaries, return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Let's take a look and see what creatures we have that qualify. The question is how many, because I just wrote down things that would apply. None of these. Hangerback, not really. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. And 1 less because I'm going to cut the Foundry Inspector. See what I mean about this deck being a little top-heavy? Scrap Trawler, Filigree, Vidalcan Engineer, Mirror Retriever, Aethersworn Canonist, Ethereum Sculptor, Baleful Strix. Wait, where is... Why isn't... What the heck? Why isn't Foundry Inspector here? I don't know. Huh. Weird. Anyway, the only problem with this is most of these cards are artifacts, which I have other ways to get back. So I'm going to say we're not going to run Teshar. He's also not an artifact himself, which is a little bothersome. He's a 2/2 for 4 with flying. The fact that he's not an artifact means you usually have to work really well with artifacts if I'm going to run you. Let's keep going. Curator's Ward. I believe that's a colorless. I might be forgetting it. Oh, no. I remember this one. It's a blue spell. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Enchanted Permanent has hexproof, and when it dies, if it was historic, artifact, legendary, or saga, draw 2 cards. I like the idea of this. It basically gives something important to me hexproof, and if it's an artifact, I can sacrifice it to Brea whenever I want to draw 2. The question is it worth paying 3 mana and a card slot for an enchantment like that? If this was an artifact, I would run it in a second. The problem is that the best draw card engine in here? I'll leave it on the list as a maybe. I think it's worth leaving as a maybe. Mishra's Self-Replicator. This is a fun card that I'm not sure about. Mishra's Self-Replicator. 5 mana, 2/2. Whenever you cast a historic spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the Self-Replicator. This is hilarious. It's pay 1 on almost any spell in the deck and get an extra 2/2 that I can sacrifice for Brea, and I'm pretty sure it also still has its ability. So that seems like a really strong contender. Yeah, that seems hilarious. For sure. That's definitely on the list of maybes. Mox Amber. This is a very contentious card right here. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. That's probably a no, because it does not help me ramp into Brea. And let's see. 1, 2 for Joyra, I guess. 3. Yeah, like I said, 4, 5, 6. Not counting Brea, there's only... So there are only... Here's the important thing. Without Brea on the field, there are only 6 cards in the deck that actually help Mox Amber generate mana. That means it's almost never going to make mana until after I've cast Brea, and then it's great for using her abilities, but I'd rather not run a card that means I have to have Brea or one of 5 other cards out. This is one I'm losing steam on in the sight of so many other good cards, but Helm of the Host is hilarious. 4 mana equipment for equip 5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except it's not legendary, and it gains haste and then does nothing. I wanted to run it in the deck because I have so many enter the battlefield triggers that are really awesome. Problem is equipping 5 is a lot, and usually with Brea, my mana isn't so free that I can afford to do that, and I usually want to spend that mana doing Brea things. So I don't think it's really worth it, unfortunately, and I think if I wanted a similar ability, I would be running Conjurer's Closet, which is blink at a creature on your side of the field every turn, which is actually something I should add to the list, because honestly, it's more like Conjurer's Closet. Conjurer's Closet is much more likely to be run than Helm of the Host. That's actually a good point on my part. I should have thought of that. And Antiquities War, which is something I typoed. Oh no, I put it there twice. Sweet. Even better. Making my job easier on myself. Woo. The other thing about these cards is outside of something like Open the Vaults, I don't really hate a lot of these cards, but it's just... See, like, here's the thing. Here's also what you need to do. Here's an upgrade. Joyra is an upgrade over Reverse Engineer. Joyra draws cards casting artifacts. I don't need to have them on the field for... And I'm almost always casting stuff, so it just adds more value over time. I like over time. My decks tend to be very grindy and powerful machines. I realize that's what I like to build, is machines. Funny enough, for an artifact deck we're talking about, right? Let's get into more cards that are not cards that by default are that are not in Dominaria. Goblin Welder. This card is nuts. It's super old and super good. Tap it. It's a 1/1 goblin for red. Tap, choose target artifact in a graveyard, a player controls in the graveyard, and a player controls on the field, and swap them, basically. This is busted for throwing Thopters away to get really sick artifacts out of the graveyard. Like, I can get... Like, if I discard something as amazing as the usual Darksteel Forge, which is busted, Spine of Ishshot, like, you can do so many goofy things with sacrifice effects, like turning my Ichor Wellspring, tap Ichor Wellspring on the field, and something good in the graveyard is tap, get that back, and draw a card, and Ichor Wellspring's in the graveyard, which is fine. That's one of those cards that's so cool, I kind of really want to have one and run it. The last Dominaria card is a new version of a card that I just added to frickin' Janara, funny enough. Thran Temporal Gateway is pay 4 and tap it to put a historic permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield, which is an artifact, legendary, or saga. This is really, really, really cool. And I'm running if you watched the Janara episode, you saw me put, what's it called? Quicksilver Amulet, which is the same thing for just creatures, but any creature in that deck. I don't actually love this in this deck because especially now that I'm trying to reduce the overall cost, this doesn't actually help cast many things. Blink Mothern, Spine of Ishshot, Darksteel Forge. Not Storm the Vault. What else? Sharoom. Mer Battlesphere, Sharding Sphinx, Noxious Gearhulk, Duplicant, Aethersworn, and Tezzeret the Seeker. It doesn't actually make things that much cheaper. The real trick of it and the real call to it is the fact that it's instant speedable, which is why I put Quicksilver Amulet in my Janara deck. I really like playing things at instant speed. That's the draw of it. I'll leave it on the list for now. I'm annoyed because I only have 5 cards and I haven't cut much. I'm currently sitting at, and I'm going to explain the last card, 9. So I need to cut 4 that I'm probably not going to play. And then the last card is another old card named, another legendary creature actually, Arkham Dagson. Target artifact creature's controller sacrifice it. You may search your library for a non-artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. This guy is busted because I can turn my Thopters into insanely good artifacts like Darksteel Forge, Spine of Ishab, Blink Mother, and if I have a toolbox in my deck, which I do, he sacrifices a Thopter usually and goes and gets any piece of the toolbox. So yeah, it's also, he's insanely good. So now that we've covered all the cards, we really need to start figuring out what I'm cutting for what. I think all of these are going to be on the chopping block. Curator's Ward doesn't make the cut in this scenario. I'm almost tempted to do something. Oh, Unwinding Clock. I forgot to cover that. I apologize. Unwinding Clock is really fun. Unwinding Clock is a 4-mana artifact that says untap all your artifacts during each other player's untap step. This is really, really fun when you have awesome cards that tap to do things, like Aethersworn Adjudicator, which you can tap to destroy creatures or enchantments. When you have things like... Ooh, it's also really good with something like, what's it called? Hangerback Walker, which you can keep tapping to add counters and make bigger Thopters. It helps with things like Trading Post, cranking out value, but more importantly, all your mana rocks tap for mana on your opponent's turns, which means you can use them to do Breya things. Yeah, that's really the big part of it, is that your rocks all untap on your opponent's turns. I wonder if maybe I should treat those as a package, that as a package deal with the Thran Temporal Gateway. I either put one or both, or neither or both. Because with the Thran Temporal Gateway, then I'm doing insane things on opponents' turns with those 2 cards out. But I don't know. Self-Replicator is really fun. Conjurer's Closet. How many blink abilities do I actually have in the deck? That's the real question. If it's more than 10, it's okay, let's say more than 8, considering Breya is 1. Ichor, 1? Mycosynth Wellspring, 2. It is 1. Panharmonicon doubles them, which is awesome. Spine. Dun, dun, dun. Still looking. Okay, here we go. Baleful. Not Retriever. Filigree. Thopter Engineer. Artisans also... Nah, not really Artisans. Ooh, yeah. Metamorph. Solemn. Whirler Rogue if I don't cut it. Maverick if I don't cut it. Duplicant doesn't work, I don't think. Marionette Master. Noxious Gearhulk. Sharoom. Mer Battlesphere. Yeah, it's worth putting Conjurer's Closet in there, I think. And then the Sagas. Let's go back up and look at them. They're right next to each other. Phyrexian Scriptures and the Antiquities War. I think the Scriptures have to go in because it offers the Graveyard Hate and board wipes that both of which the deck doesn't really have. So let's start chipping away. I'm gonna also order these in order of me most willing to cut them. I realize I'm not doing this the most efficient way, but screw it. Okay, so open the vaults is gonna be cut for the Scriptures. That leaves me with 4 options. Maybe I just do something like... Oh, but fuck. I don't think Antiquities War is making it. It's a really, really awesome ability, but for the mana, I just don't... Like, the other thing is the Breya deck wants as few non-artifact permanents as possible. Or at least things that don't direct... Like, it searches for artifacts and it makes them... I don't like something that encourages me to attack to be on my own time. The other problem with the sagas, like, Phyrexian Scriptures is going to be good no matter what happens to the board. As long as it gets all the way there, it's great. If I'm in a position where I can't attack, the Antiquities War bottom ability does nothing, which is what really scares me about it. It looks like they're all going to get cut. Maybe the Self-Replicator is better than Sharding Sphinx. That's what I go with. If only the Replicator was whenever it entered, not cast. God, I'm already at 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm only doing 3 decks for sure today. The other ones don't have as many things to play with, though. So the other decks shouldn't take as long as Breya. Whenever you cast a historic spell is also important. You know what? I'm going to go to Gatherer. I don't know why my voice cracked. What? Okay, I don't know why it didn't show up. Token will have the ability, yeah. It's just such a fun little value engine to just turn all my spells. It's like Joyra, where it turns my spells into value. All right. I mean, the real question is then, do I add the Unwinding Clock and Thran Temporal Gateway plan to the deck? And then... The thing to think about now is what cards are win more. Like Arkham is really freaking good. You know what? Here's another thing to consider. Let's bring in another factor, price. Because I just spent a bunch of money on the Joyra deck, on the Janara deck. See, the old ones, oh, it's only $1 for Goblin Welder, especially because this new one came out. That's true. I forgot. That's part of what reminded me about it, because I actually like this new artwork. The old artwork is classic, but I really like the old artwork too. Oh, yeah, foils are also insanely expensive, except for those. Arkham. I'm gonna turn off foil only. I don't. $40. It's at least $10 for a copy. He's played in competitive Commander. Really? Oh, it's just... There's no O. I was going to conjure. Conjurer's Closet. Only $5. Avacyn Restored. Ooh, Avacyn Restored. It's a really cool card. Unwinding Clock. Not crazy. I also like New Phyrexia, that whole block. is really fun. Thran Temporal Gateway doesn't mean much right now for the price. Yeah, look at this. 15, 15, 30. The thing about Conjurer's Closet is I don't want to cut it, I don't want to add it if I'm cutting... Whirler Rogue is one of the best bounce ones, because anything that brings along 2 Thopters for bouncing is so good. This is hard. Here's a thought. Maybe I don't need Welder and Arkham. I like drawing more. You know what? Here's the thing. I don't like tutoring so much, so I'm going to cut Arkham. Welder is fun. I'm going to add Welder. I'm going to put him on the list. So then it's, do I want the combo or just the closet? The problem with the deck is I don't actually end up with things. No, there's usually lands in my hand. Honestly, I've had a lot of times. But instant speed shenanigans is always hilarious. But the closet, the self-replicator is so much fun. This is a tough one because nothing else in the deck is really screaming at me to cut it either. Like, I'm looking and trying to think if there's anything else I'd even be really interested in cutting to try to make room for all 3 of these because they're all so much fun. Maybe I don't actually run Unwinding Clock. It's a fun card. Maybe I don't run them though. Because it's not about getting cheap cost reduction on the Thran Temporal. It's also about the instant speed, which, like I've said, it's part of why I love the Brea deck. And Unwinding Clock does encourage that. So if I run both of those, then it means I don't get to run the closet. But I'm also cutting 2 of my Enter the Battlefield creatures, but there's always just even Brea for value. It also... The other thing about Conjurer's Closet is it makes cutting these 2 actually easier, because the closet makes it so that anything I have on the field that already has Enter the Battlefield, or it also... Let me look up Conjurer's Closet. I know I'm talking to myself a lot. Conjurer's Closet. Target creature. So I can't use it on Enter the Battlefield artifacts. So creatures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Not kind of 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. God, this is so tough. God. I know I'm being quiet, but this is me struggling to think if there's anything else I'm willing to cut from the deck at this point. See, Supreme Verdict's like my only board wipe that I already had in the deck. I also didn't have that much target removal. Brea does a lot of jobs, though, so it's not the end of the world. Mechanized Production is so fun. Yeah, those are all really fun. A lot of it, like... Everything else I'm not cutting is because it's just such a fun freaking card. Wellspring is good fixing, especially in a 4-color deck. Now Spellbomb's my only current form of graveyard hate in the deck. I know, I'm bopping too much. I need to think. The closet is also hilarious because I already run Panharmonicon in the deck, so like doubling doubles. Boop, boop, boop. Maybe it's the welder that I don't run. No, the welder is so good, especially like I don't have that many things that get. What do I get back from the graveyard? Scrap trawler is great. Mer retriever is great. I also have my land, my academy ruins, and I also technically have buried ruin. That's the other thing about cutting Temple of the False God. I just need more colored mana. Excuse me. This is a real struggle. God, Conjurer's Closet. Fuck, I wanna play it. Maybe I don't because I'm cutting 2 cards. No, even with cutting those 2 cards, I think I said there were still 10 creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's just too many creatures that I can't consider the fact that it... Usually Conjurer's Closet, that means we'll have something to target. It helps that Breya also falls into the Conjurer's Closet. Falls into the Conjurer's Closet. Maybe I run the clock and not the gateway. I love doing instant speed stuff, like I said, but I usually also end up also wanting to do Breya things at instant speed. And it kind of is a nombo with Mishra's Self-Replicator. Yeah, you know what? That's what we're going to go with for now. Fuck it. We did it. Final picks. Joyra's Familiar for Foundry Inspector, Mox Opal for Temple of the False God, Joyra for the Reverse Engineer, Fire Exchange Scriptures for Open the Vaults, Goblin Welder for Herald of Anguish, Conjurer's Closet for the Thopterist, Mishra's Self-Replicator for Sharding Sphinx, and Unwinding Clock for Whirler Robe. Boom. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to make myself stick to it. All right, next deck. Geese and Geralt. 45 minutes. Look at how... Oh, God, there's more cards than I remembered. Shit. All right. Only on a master. Oh, mastery. I forgot. All right, next deck. Cancel. Did I make changes? I probably did, but sure, let's save them. Alrighty, next deck. Geese and Geralt Zombies. What cards am I willing to cut? Let's speed this process up, shall we? Alrighty, so. Yeah, there's a lot. Shit. Alright, cards we're going to cut. Let's do this quick. Necromancer's Stockpile. This card has disappointed me every time. Pay 1 and a black for 1 and black enchantment. Pay that cost again. Discard a creature card, draw a card. If the discarded card was a zombie, get a 2/2 zombie. Usually this card does nothing for me. Whenever I'm lucky enough to draw it, it usually is too early or too late. Maybe it's my bad luck, but I've never had a good experience with it. Dread Summons. This card bothers. This card always feels dead in my hand, and that's a problem. X black black. Each player mills X cards, and for every creature card milled, get a zombie. The problem is this deck doesn't have a lot of way to get non-zombies, non-creatures out of my graveyards, and there's a few that I really want to get. It also just sucks to be the guy who mills people, because then people get pissed and target you. So this card always feels dead to me. Always. I think I won one game with it, but that was... winning one game with a card and then it feeling dead the rest of the time to me is a bad thing, because that means that card is very situational. Those can be good. I like having fun with all my cards all the time. Kakusho, all-star who I might cut for the right card. 6 mana for a 5/5 flying dragon spirit. When it dies, every opponent loses 5 life and you gain 5. All the life lost. Obviously amazing in Commander. This card's really good. The only reason I'm potentially cutting it is because it's not a zombie. That's the only reason. So it would have to be the right card to cut Kakusho for. Tragic Slip, hilarious removal. 1 black, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, or if a creature has died this turn, it gets -13/-13. Super flavorful, super good. Man, if you can't reliably trigger death, this card isn't as good, and without the commander doing it, I always worry about it. Again, this deck, almost above some others, has cards that I wrote down just because of how many cool cards there were, but this is another one that is a maybe cut and maybe not. Liliana's Mastery, a probably cut, even though it's a really good card again, like I said. Enchantment for 5. Zombies you control get +1/+1, and it creates 2/2/2 zombie tokens, who are basically 3/3s. That's an amazing board power. Problem is, it's not exciting enough for me. Just giving my zombies +1/+1 and not everything kind of stinks, even though most of my stuff is zombies. But really, it's just, again, if I find something interesting enough, there's usually cards that are more exciting. Forgotten Creation, this card I constantly flip-flop on. 3 and a blue, Skulk, which means it's unblockable if a creature has more than 4 or more power. 3/3 horror. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all of your hand and then draw that many cards. This is, again, very situational. The one thing I don't love about it is it's only good. I've had it be good in a few games, but it's only good if you have it in your opening hand or draw it very early, where you kept either a lot or a very small amount of lands hoping to draw more, and then you don't get what you want and you want to throw it all away. So it's good in those scenarios, but you also need to draw it at that point. It's not good late when you just don't have many cards and you're mostly playing under your graveyard. So it's, again, a maybe cut. And oh, I put this in the wrong place. Yeah, so that's the what is it, 6 cards that I'm considering cutting. And if I go in order of cut likelihood, probably like this. Nope. Yeah, so we got a lot to work through. That is potential. All right, let's hurry. Yeah, you're done. Good. All right, Dominaria, Yawgmoths. Oh, this is another card I accidentally did twice that I didn't notice. Man, I'm bad at that. All right. This is also the other problem. God, the reason this deck and the other one have so fucking many cards is because there's so many things that I also discovered while I was researching for this episode. But I promise Kessa's last, and she doesn't have many changes, so we'll get to her. We'll be done with her quickly, because the likelihood is that deck has no changes, actually. All right, first card is... Where the hell is it? Oh, right, it's the Legendary Sorcery. Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. It's a Legendary Sorcery. Here's a check I would need to make for the deck. It's... put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker from any graveyard onto the battlefield and destroy one of the same thing and then exile it for 5 mana. That's amazing and would potentially cut another reanimation spell out of the deck if I had that many. Dread Return and Victimize are both bustedly good cards, and I really don't have any other cards that just say return a creature, because usually my commander can cast them. Yeah, there's really not many. Yeah, none of these really do that thing. This deck also needs some help. I should probably have more ramp in this deck. It's fine. This deck's fine. Anyway, but the problem is you need a legendary creature or planeswalker to cast it. So how likely is that? It's obviously Commander. Scarab God, Sidisi almost never lives. Shieldred. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 is not bad. 13 means that there's more than a 1 in 10 likelihood. I'm going to put that pretty near the... Wow, really? What did I just type? Yeah, that's pretty likely to be added because it's a really cool... It's removal, which is always good. And if I have a I get to steal any creature or planeswalker from an opponent's graveyard. That's a lot of choices, especially in Commander. Vanquisher's Banner is an Ixalan card. I might as well use this. Might as well use Gatherer. All creatures of the chosen type gets +1/+1, and whenever you cast a creature of the chosen type, draw a card. Specifically, your commander says cast from graveyard. So this is a card that's very likely to replace Liliana's Mastery because it's so good at, doing that thing. It's so good at... It's still buffing my creatures, but instead of being all black, I can use blue, and I draw cards when I cast instead of just getting 2 zombies, which I should already have a bunch of anyway. And I usually should have other ways to do things. Vindictive Lich is a hilarious zombie that is also from Commander. When it dies, it's a 4/1. Choose one or more mode. Each chosen mode must target a different player. And if you can't target everyone, you don't have to choose one. Target opponent sacks a creature, target opponent discards 2 cards, and target opponent loses 5 life. This is amazing for constantly bouncing around and recurring, which I totally can do in this deck with my commander. Cast this every turn and sacrifice it for something to make your one opponent lose a creature, 1 lose cards, and 1 lose 5 life. It's mostly about how good those first 2 abilities are, which are amazing. So he's definitely on the maybe board because he's really cool. Phyrexian Delver. Again. If it would type... Oh, right. There's too many Phyrexian cards. No, not Defiler. Shit. I don't even know what this card does. No, Delver is what I'm looking for. When it enters the battlefield, it's a zombie. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. That sucks, but you get 2 creatures, and it's a zombie, so it can drag non-zombies out of the graveyard. This is insanely good, and this is what might stop Yawgmoth's Vile Offering from making the cut, because they kind of play in the same space. Which is why I'm going to make a... There's also... Let me just pile on all the return cards from there. Ever After also applies there. Living Death kind of applies there. Cemetery Recruitment does that? I don't... Oh, right. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If it's a zombie, draw a card. This is cool because it gets you 2 cards back. And if my commander goes away a bunch, I don't have easy ways to cast my creatures. And it also, draw a card is always good. That kind of goes in the same pile, though. Rise of the Dark Realms goes in that pile, but it's even more extreme. Let's do a power level comparison, huh? This is lower. This is also lower. Living Death. Why don't I show you what that is? Each player gets all the creatures from their graveyard to the battlefield and their battlefield to the graveyard. Basically, it's like the Scrap Mastery in Brea came from this card being already in existence. It's really cool, though. Rise of the Dark Realms is all creatures in all graveyards are yours, and they're zombies, I think. Nope. Lied. It's busted, though. This is an I win the game card. Usually something I actually try to avoid. Especially in a deck where I can't get it back if it gets milled. That's the other thing you have to think about. Things tend to be much better when they're stapled onto creatures in this deck because my commander self-mills. And if I get milled, then it's also still okay. Rise from the Grave? Oh, right. That's just get anything back, and it's a zombie. Yeah, no. That's much more likely to be Phyrexian Yawgmoth's Bargain just because it's cool. Life's Finale? See, I've added so many, I forget a lot of them. Destroy all creatures. Then I can mill 3 creatures from one opponent's library. That's a really mean thing, and that's a board wipe. How many board wipes do I even have in the deck? Not many is the answer. Damnation. And Zombie Apocalypse isn't really. Cyclonic Rift, sort of. It's also good because it's a board wipe. It's a maybe. Animate Dead, again, goes in this pile. Probably right around here in terms of power. It's, you get any creature from a graveyard enchanted with this enchantment, an aura, and it gets -1/-0, but you get to steal any creature from any graveyard. Kindred Dominance is really, really cool. Its thing is whenever a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to draw a card. It's really good. The only thing that makes me not want to add it is because it's in Janara. I just added it to Janara for Angels. It probably is actually better in this deck, but I like to avoid crossovers whenever possible. Eldest Reborn is actually a Dominaria card. It's right here. Each opponent, it's a saga, each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker, then discards a card, and I get to steal any creature or planeswalker from a graveyard. Again, now we have to think about mana cost. Like, a lot of these are pretty expensive. That's the other problem with the deck, is it tends to run pretty high. Average CMC of 3.88, and I have almost no ramp. So that's part of why thinking about cutting more expensive stuff isn't bad. Dread Summons is an X spell that's never cheap. That's the other trick about X spells you gotta watch out for. Dark Salvation can be cast that cheap. Dread Summons doesn't get cast that cheap. Yeah, it's annoying. Vanquisher's Banner kind of also takes Kindred Dominance's place. Eldest Reborn is also going to go in this pile. Didn't mean to bold it. I didn't even know that was a shortcut. What the hell did I just hit? I don't know what I hit that bolded it, but sure. Anyway. It's probably up here in terms of power level. It's really good, but it's also really slow. That's the problem. That's the scary thing about sagas, is how slow they are. In Commander, in a one-on-one game, if you think about total number of turns, not just your turns and one opponent's turns, or like turns around the table, in one-on-one, the opponent gets one shot to react on their turn, and that's it. In Commander, every tick of a saga is usually about 3 people who have one shot to react, which is what's very scary about them in Commander. Josu, card I was hype on, and then I thought about it. 4 mana for a 4/5 menace zombie, which is amazing. Kicker for 5 and a black. When it gets kicked, if you kicked him when you cast him, you get 8 2/2 zombie tokens with knight tokens with menace. That's super freaking good. Problem is, it's so much mana, and the deck needs to run slimmer. Which is why and also I potentially am going to be building a certain knight commander at some point, and he's a knight and makes knights, so that seems more likely there. And I also have too many cards anyway already. Final parting. Speaking of Josu, search your library for 2 cards, put one into your hand and the other into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. This is super cool because while I don't run many tutors, this is not a busted tutor, which is usually my criteria. I don't like to run very busted tutors. And tutoring can be really important sometimes for not dying. Right now I only really have Buried Alive as a tutor. Yeah, that's about it. Call to the Grave is so good. It's also useful because while my commander mills, I can throw a zombie creature. Usually what I would honestly probably end up getting is I I love getting one of the most flavorful cards in the deck that I used to hate. Oh, where are you? It's, oh yeah, Vengeful Pharaoh. Where are you? Oh, I'm doing it by this. It's a 5-coster. Where are you? There you are. He's a 5/4, but when he sits in your graveyard, if you get damaged or my planeswalkers get damaged, I can destroy target attacking creature and then put it on top. It's really fun. He's really goofy. Final parting can be a maybe. Entomb is send something, tutor a creature to the graveyard. It's really good, but probably too good. Ancient Excavation, I really actually kind of want. It's a super good card from Commander last year, I think. It also would help fix my mana problem. Draw cards equal to the number of cards. So basically double the number of your cards in your hand and then discard half of them. And basic land cycling. This is almost definitely going in because I want to throw creatures in the graveyard usually. And I love filtering like this. And if I need to, I can just basic land cycle it. And in this deck, I don't actually feel bad about that. So that's almost definitely getting added. So now I'm stuck with 8 reanimation spells and 3 other cards. Right. So I'm probably going to put 2 of these. I really don't like Rise of the Dark Realms. I also don't usually hit that mana. That's the other part of it. The Yawgmoth's Bargain is so flavorful. I want it. Life's Finale works with it really well. Is there another creature I could cut? Like, I have so many. That's part of the thing. This deck just has so many zombies in it. It's insane, isn't it? Aren't there just so many? How much is? I don't know how much. I don't even want to know how much Scarab God is. And the amazing thing about this deck is almost all of these zombies, there's a point where I want them. That's the other amazing thing about this deck that I really love. Almost all of these zombies have a point where I'm like, I'm going to go get that zombie because it's really good right now. Or if I just draw them, they're valuable on their own anyway. It's really one of the things I love about this deck. I really can't pick a single one of these creatures that I'm like, yeah, I would get rid of that. Because as much as I don't like just generic lords +1/+1, zombie lords are really good when this deck makes lots of zombies. I also don't super want to cut Kakusho. That's something really worth thinking about. I should also think that if I'm cutting one of my rare removal spells... I think I'm honestly just going to do that. Take Final Parting and Vindictive Lich. That doesn't make the cut. That doesn't make the cut. I don't like Living Death, like I said. Because this doesn't have as much... This only has 2 cards that are real good sacrifice outlets. No. I really wish I could play Delver. Animate Dead I don't think is fun. It's just not a fun card, and it certainly wouldn't be fun to play against. Yawgmoth is so flavorful. Even though Animate Dead is probably better than Yawgmoth, actually. But being able to steal Planeswalkers is cool. It's worth the risk, in my mind. Do I have any other kind of recursion stuff here? I mean, Shieldred's not going anywhere. That's for fucking sure. Micaeus is so good. Leon's Reaver is really a good card. Man, this is tough. No, I don't think Delver can make the cut for right now. I think that's just what I have to go with. Yeah. All right. Okay, what? Am I like doing a paste special or something? I don't fucking know. Whatever. All right, we're almost done. Those are our changes. I should open, actually I need cast spells open. I should leave that open so I can make the changes in here later on. Kess, very simple. There are very, very, very few cards that I'm willing to consider. Most of these are almost definitely not happening. Almost definitely. That's how tight Kess is. Kess was like the holy shit, I can find like one card I want and almost nothing I'm willing to cut at all. Oh, did I not do Lycia cards I'm willing to cut? Yeah. SRAM also 2 cards I'm willing to cut. They're just such tight decks. There's like no choices. All right. All right. We only had 4 cards. 2 of them are almost definitely no. Actually, there's 3. There should be 3. Okay, I'll add it as I go past it. All right. Let's look at cards that I could potentially run. First one, or 2 cards I'm willing to cut, I guess I should start with, as I have been. Nicol Bolas the Deceiver. He's a really fun planeswalker, but man oh man alive is he the weakest of the 3. And I already have a bunch of planeswalkers, and he's just really expensive. He's not super good. He's basically can be really expensive removal, but I just don't... I'd rather run a more fun card than just another good Nicol Bolas card. This deck is just so much value, and it would also lower my curve again, which is, you know, always solid. Chase is up to $130. Thank God I have one of these. And Rakdos Charm. This card probably shouldn't get cut and probably won't. Exile cards from target player's graveyard, destroy an artifact, or each can... It's basically only the first 2 things. I only really have it because sometimes you need graveyard hate, but I almost never cast it for that, or have it for that, or want it for, or end up needing it for that. I usually just win. So it's like, maybe I'll cut it. Alright, so let's figure out what the possibilities are. Narumeha, Master Wizard. Flash 3/3 for 4. Copy a spell you control. I'm not playing it. I just wanted to mention it, but it's not... I'd run Dualcaster Mage before that, and I don't run Dualcaster Mage, so... Dualcaster Mage is an old card from Commander that when it enters the battlefield, you copy any instant or sorcery spell, not just your own. The pump is almost nothing in my deck, and yeah, she doesn't make the cut. I just wanted to mention it. 2 things. The Mirari Conjecture. Return target instant card saga. Return an instant from your graveyard to your hand. Return a sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Until end of turn, you copy any instants or sorceries you cast. This also doesn't work for me on a level of it makes me play at the pace the game wants. And Kess more than almost any other deck is about, I do what I want, you know? Like, I have mana up all the time. I'm going to do what I want to frickin' do. You're not going to stop me. You know, I'm not going to let you set the pace of my game. And this is so about, like, usually I'll have an instant in my graveyard, but if I don't, it's so hit or miss. This is also one of the ones where it's really, really, I have to play into the card's timing. And I hate that. Nothing makes me not want to play a card more than that. Unwind is the one card I'm probably going to take from Dominaria. Where are you? Unwind. You're just an uncommon. There's the... Oh, let me talk about this. Precognition Field. You may look at the top card of your library. If it's an instant sorcery, you can cast it, and you can pay 3 to exile the top card of your library. If this cost 1 less mana, it would almost certainly make the cut, but it's so tough. But it's such a good ability for digging deep. Let me get into the other card. It's let me add it to this. It's really cool and flavorful, and it's better than Bolas probably, which is why I'd potentially run it. And if I leave up mana, I can do things, which is also teases me a little bit. Where's Unwind? The most strong counterspell printed in a while. There you are. Counter target non-creature spell. Isn't that what oh my god, negate is? Yes. But for 1 more mana, you get to untap 3 lands. I run almost all the cards that do this, and a counter spell that does it is right in my wheelhouse. I don't run Rewind because that's unfunnish, but I think I could run Unwind. I have so many counter spells, I want to usually leave mana up almost all the time. With cost reduction, this is mana plus, and it protects my spells from counters during my turn, which I really like as well. Again, kind of feeds into me a little bit there. So that's probably going to make the cut. And then the one non-Dominaria cut was actually a pretty new card. Dire Fleet Daredevil. 2/1 first strike for 2. When it enters the battlefield, exile target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. You may cast it, and you may this turn, and you can cast it with mana of any color. I really like this because if an opponent has a really good spell in their graveyard, and they usually do in Commander, I can totally steal it with my Spell Slinger deck and use it to my advantage because I can do things like copy it a lot and things like that. So, yeah. I really want to run this card because it's really fun. And I almost feel like it could be better than Bolas in situations. There's so many options there. So this is going to replace Bolas. Maybe I don't run Unwind. I really want to. It feels so right. But Precognition Field is so much grindy value. And having a hidden card on top is always valuable. I have Vizier of the Menagerie in my Selvala deck, which is look at the top card of your library. It's better than the old stuff where you used to have to reveal the top card of your library. Now you can look without showing. It's such a good ability. What do I do? I don't even want to cut Rakdos Charm that much. See, what I find is people use their graveyards a lot, but this deck controls the board so much that I usually can handle the board even if they get to keep using their graveyard. That's what usually ends up happening here. So I'm willing to cut Rakdos Charm, but for what? Another counterspell? What are my counterspells that I'm looking at already? Commit, which I need for hand refilling. Counterspell, Cryptic. Disallow. Disdainful Stroke. Essence Scatter. Mana Drain, Mana Leak. Mystic Conflict. Maybe I would cut... Mana Leak is honestly perfectly good in Commander. People don't think it is, but it's super too good. All of the counter spells in this deck have so much value already. I think Precognition Field comes in. It's a question now of if I get Unwind in the deck. Biff, 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 biff. Do I get it? Do I get to run it? Maybe for now I say no. Yeah, I think for now this is it. I think I keep it in mind, but I don't actually run it for now. All right. Well, anyway, that's it. So we made our changes. And then next time we have 3 more decks to make changes to. Sweet. And I get to keep this series going, which is awesome because I get to keep talking about Commander. Even though next week will almost definitely be very short because there's a bunch of stuff here. Most of it's not. Oh, I do have the cards that I'm interested in cutting right here. Yeah, only 3 for Lycia, 5 for Selvala, and 2 for Sram. So not many cards I'm willing to cut, and especially in Sram's case, there's not a lot I need. These, like, I threw almost everything at the wall, and most of it didn't make the cut, especially for Kess. But until next time, everyone, thank you very much for watching Command Me. Next time, yeah, we'll talk about more Commanders and more Dominaria experiences. Because by the time I record the next episode, maybe I'll have touched a Dominaria card. But until next time, everyone, thank you so much for watching. My name is Pete, and I will catch you guys later.